Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Before we get started, I don't want to make sure I take the time to do this enough. I appreciate you tuning in every single week into these episodes and the feedback that I get. I'm grateful. So thank you. I don't have a show if nobody listens to it. So to you, to all of you, thank you very much for tuning in. And I hope that I continue to serve you and you get a lot of value out of these episodes. Today, I'm going to talk about time management. And I'm going to, in a short amount of time, I don't know how long this episode is going to be, but within 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, I'm going to solve all your time management problems. And I'm going to keep it very simple because it is. We overcomplicate everything as human beings. And we think that solving our lack of having enough time or the fact that we're not good at time management, we think that this is something that's super difficult. And it is not difficult. If you follow these 5 guidelines, these 5 steps that I'm about to give you, and you do them, you actually do them and you commit to them, you're going to be way better at your time management, way better. And you're going to have more time. And you are going to leave me such an amazing rating and review on this show after this episode. Okay. I want to tell you first, number one, that anybody that I ever talk to that I consider for my one-to-one coaching program that would like to hire me as their coach to help them start a business, an online business, using the skills and the knowledge that they already have, typically from their corporate career, and turn it into an online business. I have calls with them, right, to see if I can help them, to see if I'd be a good fit, and vice versa. And one of the questions I ask everybody 2 questions, but one of the questions I say, and I say it verbatim to everyone, is I say, time management. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being that you're the best in the world, how would you rate yourself? And most people, like the overwhelming majority of the people that I speak to, say 5 or 6. I mean, it's almost everyone. A couple people have said 4. One person said 10, and I said to him, I said, "Well, why are you talking to me?" He didn't like that answer and didn't hire me as his coach, but nobody's a 10. I mean, you're always trying to improve with your time management. Like, as good as we get with some of these habits and some of these systems that I'm about to give you, some of these tools, you're still going to slip. It's called being a human being, and that's okay. But we're going to get you a lot better than where you are right now. So just understand that most people are middle of the road. At least they would rate themselves middle of the road. So how do we get better with our time management? Well, the first thing that we have to do, number one, is understand what our time is worth, because your time is a commodity and there is a literal price tag attached to it. And you have to know what that is. So I'm going to grab my calculator here and give you a couple of different examples. So if you're an hourly employee, 9 to 5er, well, you know what your hourly rate is. If you're making $50 an hour, then that's your rate. So understand what that is. If it's 100, it's 100. But if you're making $100,000 per year, you take your salary and you divide it by 2,080. That's how many working hours there are in a calendar year. If you work 40 hours per week and you take, whatever, 2 weeks vacation. So 2,080, that comes to about $50 an hour. All right. So whatever your salary is divided by 2,080. Now, that's the first step, understanding what your time is worth. That is a simple exercise. Will take you literally 30 seconds to do that. And my suggestion to you is to put that dollar amount in front of you, put it on a Post-it note. The second thing that you would do after you know what your time is worth, and this is the part that's a little bit challenging, but I promise you, if you do this, you will be in such a better spot and getting closer to managing your time and getting to this time management mastery that I like you all to just be striving for. It's never going to be perfect, but you're going to, instead of saying a 5 or 6, you're going to say, well, I'm probably a 7 or an 8 and I'm on my way to like a 9 and trying to get to a 10, is to audit your time. Most of us don't know how we're spending our time. We're not really aware of what we're doing. We think we are, we can look at our calendars, we know what we did, but you really don't know what you're doing day in and day out. And this is why a time audit is super important. And here's what you do. Here's how you do it. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not fun. And I've done it multiple times. Everyone that I coach, one-to-one, the people who are in my mastermind, I encourage them to do this. Most of them have done the exercise, and there's been nothing but positivity coming from this exercise. So you would audit what you're doing from when you wake up to when you go to sleep, and you would do it for a full week, and you would chart it in 15-minute intervals. And I mean everything, okay? So every 15 minutes, you're going to stop what you're doing. You're going to say, okay, I did this. I'm checking email. I grabbed my phone. I had a phone call. I talked to my family. Whatever it is that you're doing, you chart it. You do that for a full week. You give it an honest go. Then you evaluate it. You look at the time audit that you did, and you look for patterns, right? Like, what are things that are repetitive that I'm doing? And those are things that you can either automate, like you can put a system in place that will help you free up time. Like, if something's repeated on your calendar and your time audit multiple times during the week, look for a way to automate that. Like, how can I systematize that? Right? Or if it's something that you should not be doing, you would drop it, which goes right to the third thing, which is to the third bullet point here that I have, or the third tactic, which is drop the things that don't serve you. So after you do the time audit, you will have an awareness of like, hey, I'm spending way too much time picking up my phone and scrolling social media. I need to stop doing that, or I need to limit that. But you need to have that awareness first before you can get to the point where, hey, these things are holding me back. Because the easy thing for you to say, and I hear this all the time, is I don't have time. I'm too busy. And then you just start piling on like the excuses, the time excuses. Well, I have a job. I have a long commute. I'm busy. I got to do all this stuff around the house. I got the kids. I got to take into practices. Like, while all that stuff is true, you do this time audit and you realize, wow, I'm spending 3 hours a day scrolling social media, right? Or I'm spending all of this time in meetings at my W-2 when that hour-long meeting might only be 5 minutes. Like, it could be 5 minutes if you set up some of these things that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. But just understand what it is, and then drop the things that don't serve you, right? Whatever you're doing that doesn't serve you or your family, your personal vision, which is a whole nother podcast episode that I did. You have to have a personal vision. If it doesn't serve that, then you should no longer be doing it, or you outsource it, right? So the repetitive stuff, which is why I said, hey, you need to know what your time is worth. So every hour that you spend doing something, mindless activity that doesn't pay you, you're losing whatever that dollar amount is, because you could be working on a business, or you could be working on something that could pay you that dollar amount. Okay. Even if you were doing more work, like if you're in sales and you're doing more sales calls, and you can make $50 an hour or $100 an hour, like, go do that instead of scrolling on social media for 3 hours. It doesn't serve you. So look to drop the things that don't move the needle in your life. The fourth thing is, now that we know, so we know what our time is worth. We know what we're doing with our time, and we're starting to eliminate the things that don't work for us, that don't serve us, or we're automating them, putting systems in place, or we're delegating it. We're giving it to other people. One of the things I always talk about is like, hey, if you're making $75 an hour, $50 an hour, and you're cutting your grass, I mean, you need to stop doing that right away. Grocery shopping, you can pay people $20, $30, $35 an hour to get this stuff done, and you don't need to be doing it. You're losing money when you do the stuff on your own. You're losing money, and you wouldn't know that if you didn't understand what your rate is. You think you're saving money by cutting your grass. You think you're saving money by going to the grocery store. If you're making $50 an hour and you can hire somebody to go do your grocery shopping for $20, $25, you are saving money. Just think of it that way. Know your rate. So now we need to set priorities. What are our priorities? What do we want to get done? What are the most important things that we're trying to accomplish that get us towards our goals? Now, again, you have to have goals. You have to have a vision, a target, a destination that you're trying to go to. But what are the things that move the needle in my life? What are the priorities? What do I want to do? What do I want to get done? If we're talking about health and fitness and you want to have you want to lose weight, you want to look better, you want to feel better, that needs to be a priority in your life. I don't have time to work out. Well, now you do, because you just did a time audit and you realized all the stuff you're wasting time on. So now you have time to work out because you're dropping all that other stuff. And you're going to set a priority of working out, and you're going to block that out in your calendar, which is what I do in the morning. Number one, I set the priority. I want to work out 4 times a week for X number of minutes, and I have a system in place to make sure that I accomplish that. The first system is that I write it down, number one. So I write down my goals. My workouts are in my calendar, and I have an accountability partner, someone that I report to, and he does the same thing to me. Hey, I did my workout, right? It's usually health and fitness related. So I'm talking, and diet as well. So I'm talking about health and fitness, but you do this with everything. You do this with wealth. You do this with your relationships, with your business. You figure out, like, what are the things that I want to improve in my life? And people want to improve typically those 3 areas: health and fitness, wellness, right? Relationships, and then wealth. So those activities, what are the things that need to be done so that you can get closer to what your priorities are in those specific areas of your life? And do those things and have systems set up. They're in your calendar. You're writing them down. You have a way to hold yourself accountable, and you give permission to other people to hold you accountable, and you will move closer to your end destination, which is your personal vision, the plan for your life. And now you won't be strapped by this "I don't have enough time" thing, like crippled by it. Time management, you're getting way better. Okay, the 5th thing for time management mastery. Okay, and we're under 20 minutes here still, guys. So we're solving all of these issues here. Now you just have to do them, is to set boundaries. You have to set boundaries with people, because no matter what you do, with all of these steps, you know what your time is worth, you do your audit, you drop the things that don't serve you, you set your priorities in, you are still going to have people who are going to try to take your time from you. They're going to steal your time from you. One of the things that we talked about in our most recent mastermind call today, for people who have 9-to-5 jobs, W-2 jobs, and trying to set boundaries with your bosses, right, with your employers, is they're just as bad, if not worse, than you are at time management. And everyone was like shaking their head, like they're the worst with all these meetings and updates and phone calls. It's like, don't you have something to do besides be up my ass all day long? Like, I remember that when I worked my W-2, it's like, these guys got nothing to do. These middle management guys, they got nothing to do except harass you. So it's like, they need time management too. Like, go do something. Like, why do we need to have another meeting that is completely pointless and it could be solved in 5 minutes? So just understand that that is going to continue to happen to you, and not just by your boss, but by other people. People are going to try to steal your time from you. So if you know that number, like my number is well into the hundreds in terms of what I'm worth. Like every time somebody texts me or messages me or emails me, I'm like, they're trying to steal $300 from me. And I'm not just going to give that away. So write your number down. If it's $100 an hour, it's like somebody wants to get on your calendar and have a meeting. They're trying to steal $100 from you. It better be worth it. It better be worth it for you to give your time away. And you better make sure they show up, and you better make sure that you get value out of it, and they are prepared. That's one of the things that drives me absolutely nuts, is that people come to meetings and they're not prepared. They're not. They show up late. They're not prepared. I don't want people like that in my life. And you shouldn't either, if you want to have a better life and get a hold of your time. So just understand that people are always going to try to steal your time from you with text messages, with emails, with phone calls. And look, you don't have to answer the damn phone just because somebody calls you. You don't. Now, if it's a family member, I have my boundaries are set with everyone. I don't answer the phone. It's on silent all day long. I just simply don't answer it. And a lot of the times, and we talked about this on our mastermind call the other day, is when people are calling you, especially your bosses, and you don't answer and it goes to voicemail, a lot of times you go to call them back the next day, like the problem's already solved. They figured it out. They don't need you. So I'm telling you that this to be true, that you will find the more that you not ignore people, but just get back to them on your terms, because that's what I'm talking about here is doing it on your terms. They usually will figure the situation out on their own, or they'll go to the next person, right? So especially if it's after hours. Like if you have a 9 to 5 job or you've been hired to do a job, there's this whole expectation that is usually a lot of it's put on, you put it on yourself. Some of it is probably put on you by your employer, by your bosses. But when you make over a certain dollar amount, like you get past the 6-figure mark, you feel as though you got to be available 24/7. And that's just no way to live. That's no way to live. You should not live that way. And you need to have you need to go through all these steps, number one, that I'm giving you, all 5 of them, and then have the conversation with your employer to the extent of, look, I don't know what business you're in, but I'm just going to say, let's just say you're in sales. As long as the job gets done, does it matter? Does it make any difference? As long as I do the job for you, does it make any difference that I have to report to you all the time, as many times as you want? Like this is preventing me from doing what I'm supposed to do, what you hired me to do. This is the time we have a gentleman in our mastermind. He's been on the show. He's been on the podcast. His name is Ryan Sturgeon. He's really, really good at his time management. I mean, really, really good. And he's also good at setting boundaries with his employer. And one of the things that he does is he sets his calendar up. Okay, I'm going to do customer calls during this block. I'm going to do my client follow-up work here during this block. And then this timeline, this time frame here is for me to speak with my boss. And he had this conversation with his boss and he says, if when you need me falls out of that timeline, then it's going to have to wait for the next day. And guess what? The guy agreed to it. Okay. Because number one, he had the conversation, he set the expectation, he presented it in a way. It's like, hey, look, does it really matter? Does it really make any difference if I get the job done? And they hired you to do a job, not for you to be on call 24/7, answering a bunch of stupid questions and being at these meetings that don't mean anything. To that point, and I'm sorry to be belligerent here, I just get like, again, the middle managers, the upper managers, like they're just not good at time management, the large majority of them, and they're sucking you into that. And I don't want you to have bad habits that you bring into your business. So you got to get a grasp on your time, because if you are leaving your 9 to 5 job, this is why you're listening to the show. You can't bring those poor time management habits into your business, or you're just going to simply repeat it. You're going to be bad at your time management. You're going to hire people and you're going to suck their time too. And then they're going to quit on you. Exactly like what you're trying to do right now. You're like, I can't take this anymore with my employers. I got to get out of this. Well, while you're getting out of that, you can start setting some boundaries with these people. And I'm telling you that it's scary, it's frightening to have those discussions, but you present it in a way where it's like, hey, this is actually going to help both of us. And I've had several people in the mastermind that have done that have gone to their bosses, their employers, and said, hey, this meeting is not really necessary. And one of the tools that, and I'll wrap the episode up in here in a bit, one of the tools that we talked about was using Loom. Like if you want to report on something, you can grab a Loom account, which is free. You can get 5-minute videos, up to 5-minute recordings for free. And you can send those videos to your employer, and then you don't have to have all this back and forth nonsense with emails, right? Or DMs or Microsoft Teams or whatever you guys use in your business. Or, for your 9 to 5 job, which can just be an ultimate time suck. Like you can get caught up spending an entire day doing an email, 10 people are on it and you're going back and forth, or you're in Microsoft Teams and it's like back and forth. It's like, just shut that shit off. Seriously, turn it off, turn that stuff off and follow your calendar and have time blocks. You will never, ever, ever get out of reactive mode and get into a place where you can control your time and run your day and get to time management mastery, unless you shut the ding off. You have to do it. You cannot have your email open all day long. You cannot have your phone on all day long. You have to have windows where you attend to that stuff and start small. If it's on all day right now, start small, right? Leave it off for an hour. Then the next week it's 2 hours. Then the next week it's 3 hours. And it'll get easier and easier and easier. You don't have to shut the phone off for the entire day right after you listen to this episode. You don't need to do that. My phone is off all day long on silent mode. And the only people that break through that, my wife and my son, that's it. You've heard me talk about that a lot. And it's the most normal and natural thing for me. And I would think that living the other way would be absolutely insane. And that's not a slight on anybody, but that's how I used to live. Now I couldn't imagine having my phone on all day long and answering all these phone calls. It's just unnecessary. I'll call you when I need to call you. And usually the situation is worked out by then. It's like, oh, I didn't really need you anyway. So a 40-minute phone call or an hour phone call can go down to like 5 or 10 minutes. And again, if your worth is $100 an hour, think of how much time you just got back. Think of how much money you just saved, right? How much you can go out and earn now because you're not running around answering all these text messages and Teams messages and phone calls and emails that don't serve you, that don't serve your hourly rate. Okay. Those are the 5 steps. They're going to be listed in the show notes for reference. Go get it done and start with the first exercise, knowing what your time is worth, and then do the time audit. It's going to be painful. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but you will absolutely thank me. And I want you to leave a rating and review after you do the time audit that, Brian, you were right. I'm so glad I listened to this episode because it helped me. It really helped me. And I thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one. Make it an excellent day.